The storm had swallowed the town whole by the time the little girl appeared at the glass doors of the Frostline corporate tower, her tiny frame trembling against the violent night. Inside, the lobby glowed with warm marble light, golden and polished, a stark contrast to the chaos outside. Most employees had already fled home to escape the blizzard that was ripping through northern Colorado, but one woman, Alexandra Pierce, the iron-willed billionaire CEO who feared nothing and trusted no one, stood frozen in place when she saw the child's tear-streaked face pressed against the glass. The little girl wasn't crying loudly. She wasn't screaming. She wasn't even knocking. She simply stared inside with eyes full of a quiet, unbearable plea. In that instant, Alexandra Pierce, who had built empires without blinking, felt something inside her crack. The girl whispered through the door, as if afraid that speaking too loudly might break whatever fragile hope she had left. "Ma'am, my dad didn't come home. Sparkles, if you believe in kindness, compassion, and second chances, please like, comment, share, and subscribe to the channel. Your support helps stories like this reach more hearts." Alexandra hadn't planned on going downstairs that evening. She'd only stepped into the lobby because she needed air, real air, not the filtered penthouse oxygen on the top floors. Her mind had been cluttered with spreadsheets and legal fights and the constant pressure of keeping shareholders satisfied. But all that vanished as she opened the door and the storm clawed at her face like icy fingers. The little girl couldn't have been more than 7. Her coat was too thin, her boots were mismatched, and snowflakes clung to her dark curls as if refusing to melt. She introduced herself as Harper, her voice soft and shaking. She said she lived a few blocks away in a rundown apartment complex behind the old bus depot. Her dad, Mason, worked nights at a warehouse loading trucks. He always returned before the blizzard got too bad. But tonight, he didn't. He hadn't answered his phone either, and Harper didn't know where else to go. She said she had followed the only lit building she could see through the storm, this one. Alexandra felt a strange ache in her chest, something she hadn't felt in years, something she thought she had buried when she buried her childhood grief beneath ambition and steel. She knelt beside the little girl, noticing how purple her fingertips looked from the cold. Something in Harper's trembling made Alexandra remember nights long ago when she herself had waited for a father who never returned. She tried to step away from that memory, her therapist used to call it, the door she refused to open, but the storm outside roared like a reminder. Some doors, no matter how painful, didn't stay locked forever. Without hesitation, she scooped Harper inside, wrapped her in her tailored coat, and ordered the security team to bring warm blankets and hot chocolate. The girl clung to her sleeve with the fierce grip of someone terrified of being left behind again. Alexandra told herself it was temporary, she would help locate the father, ensure the girl got home safely, and return to her spreadsheets. But life rarely listened to carefully structured plans, and the storm was just beginning. Harper explained through shivers that her father had been working overtime for months. He never complained, but Harper knew he was tired. She knew the bills piled up. Ever since her mother had passed from illness 3 years earlier, Mason had been trying to hold everything together while juggling 2 jobs. They lived simply, often skipping luxuries, sometimes even skipping dinners. But he always tucked Harper into bed and promised that things would get better. Tonight, though, he never walked through the door. And something in Harper's eyes told Alexandra this wasn't just a late shift. As the snow outside thickened into an unforgiving wall of white, Alexandra made the impulsive decision to take Harper home herself. Her driver warned her that the roads were nearly invisible, that the storm was worsening by the minute. Alexandra ignored him. She was used to forging through danger, hostile boardrooms, cutthroat negotiations, but this was different. This wasn't business. This was a child. And somewhere out there was a father who might be freezing, injured, or worse. The SUV crawled through the blizzard, headlights carving weak tunnels in the swirling snow. Harper sat pressed against Alexandra's side, staring at the road with wide, anxious eyes. Alexandra kept glancing at her, feeling a protective instinct she didn't understand. The apartment complex appeared only when they were nearly on top of it, shabby, dimly lit, one of the buildings with a half-collapsed awning. Harper guided Alexandra up the stairwell, where cold drafty winds seeped through the cracks. Inside the apartment, the heat barely worked, but it was tidy. A small pair of socks folded on the couch. A photograph of Harper and her father taped to the fridge. A handwritten schedule listing his shifts and Harper's school timings. Everything showed effort, hard-earned, quiet, unwavering effort. Alexandra tried calling the warehouse herself. Lines were down. She tried contacting emergency services, but the storm had overwhelmed responders. They were urging people to stay indoors, to wait until morning. Harper shook her head violently at the suggestion of waiting. She said her father always kept his promises, always. If he didn't come home, something terrible happened. Alexandra believed her. Going back outside was a risk, one that could cost them their lives in the freezing wind. But something in Alexandra's bones told her she had to go. She couldn't leave this child to sit in fear, not when she had the resources, the vehicle, and the determination to help. Against every ounce of her corporate instinct screaming liability, she put a note on the apartment door in case Mason returned, bundled Harper in thicker blankets she found in the closet, and carried her back to the SUV like she weighed nothing. They drove toward the warehouse district, navigating roads that barely existed beneath the heavy snow. Halfway there, the SUV slid on a patch of ice and nearly hit a lamppost. Harper shrieked and clung to Alexandra's arm. Alexandra steadied the wheel, her heart pounding. She had faced billion-dollar losses and came out unfazed, but this responsibility, this child's life, made her hands tremble. She whispered reassurances, surprising even herself with the softness in her voice. When they reached the warehouse, they found the parking lot empty except for one vehicle, a rusted old pickup truck dusted heavily with snow. Harper recognized it immediately. She said it was her dad's. Alexandra felt the air tighten in her lungs. A single set of footprints led away from the truck, half buried by drifting snow. The warehouse door was locked, lights off. Something was wrong. Following the tracks was nearly impossible. The wind kept erasing them, and the night grew colder, sharper, more dangerous. Alexandra wrapped Harper in her arms beneath her coat, shielding her from the elements as they followed the faint prints around the side of the building. Then, beneath a staircase, they found him. Mason lay crumpled against the concrete wall, partially buried in snow, his face pale, his breath shallow. He had slipped on the ice after locking up and had struck his head. He'd likely been lying there for hours. Harper screamed her father's name and reached for him, tears blurring her vision. Alexandra felt her throat tighten as she checked his pulse, weak but present. She immediately called emergency services again. This time, she didn't take no for an answer. Her voice carried the weight of someone who wasn't used to being denied. She demanded immediate assistance and gave coordinates, promising legal repercussions if ignored. Within minutes, a rescue team was dispatched. Alexandra held Harper close as they waited. She kept the girl warm, whispering gently that her father would be okay, that help was on the way. Harper pressed her face against Alexandra's chest, shaking from fear and cold, but trusting her completely. Trust, something Alexandra hadn't felt from anyone in years. The rescue team arrived like a miracle cutting through the storm.